Welcome back to episode number 3 of the One More K podcast brought to you by Lecker Nutrition. My name is Marcus and I'm here, of course, with Ned Phillips. Good morning, Ned.
Morning, Marcus. I have a statistic to lead us off this morning. We are on episode 3. Apparently, only 10% of podcasts make it to episode 20. So we are on our way. Currently, we are sadly in the 90% who haven't got there, but we will not, like an ultra, we will not give up. And episode 20 will just be a checkpoint 1 on our journey.
And we will celebrate then. But for now, let's go back to work. Today, we have in store a few things. We have in store of course, quick update on the UTMB drama. Just it's nice to cover it from time to time. Then we're going to have a look into what athletes are earning in the US and also in Southeast Asia. We will review a wonderful documentary about trail running and backyard running. And of course, we have race recap corner and plus, who cannot wait for this, the Nets weekly drop on the end of the podcast. Let's kick it off. So back to our UTMB drama. I mean, actually, I thought we should not cover it too long because it also at some point gets too dramatic. But we had our beautiful friends at UTMB coming out with a statement. Have you read the statement, Ned?
Well, I have because I suppose the question is, have the listeners? And I think I responded to you. It felt like UTMB telling off a couple of naughty school children who had done something slightly wrong, and they weren't telling them off too much, but they were telling them off a little bit. I would say the tone of this letter could have been better, and I think I'm being generous.
That's true. It seems like a good PR campaign. I do think that they tried their best. I do think it's nice that they have met at least with, or virtually have met with Killian and Zach. But it definitely was rather a bit of tiptoeing on both sides. Have you actually then read also the statement from Zach and Killian afterwards on Instagram?
I read Killian's response, which was much better, was Killian's not a company, so Killian can say, well, he is new normal, but he is not a company in the same way. I suppose the point it came across to me, it really felt like, they were, it was often Killian and Zach were reminded. You never say that in the real world. Killian and Zach were reminded. You don't remind them in that term, right? Whereas Killian's was just like, hey, look, everyone's trying to do their best. Things get hard. It's okay. Move these things forward. I don't know. I mean, I sadly think that, UTMB wins. They'll carry on doing their stones and they'll stamp on other people. And not because they want to. It's just because they're private equity. And we talked about that last week. And they'll get bigger. And, Killian and Zach will get older. And, they'll make up and kiss and make up. But it will always be a little fractious.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just sharing here also Zach's Instagram post quickly for the one watching on YouTube. I did like the last part of his text, which was saying the next step is to take action. Right? Killian and I are not here only for conversation. We're here for change. UTMB has expressed to us that they are working for the good of the trail community. So yeah, it is about taking action. Right? And I think that's really what it's all about to see how this is going forward. As it's evolving. But yeah, I feel like almost we should have every episode have a like UTMB drama corner now because it's like a soap opera.
and like all soap operas, you need villains, you need heroes, you need plot. The real deciding point will be, of those top 15, how many don't turn up, right? And I think the little subtext to this, and we didn't really talk about it, if the listeners are familiar with Corinne Malcolm is Dylan Bowman's co-host on many things, and she was she was one of the live commentators, and she has been removed as a live commentator because she made some strong remarks back when Gary and the race and all of this kicked off. And to me, that's what happens on the day. So we don't have Corinne, we probably won't have Dylan, we don't have the top 15. Of course, more people will fill their shoes, and there's plenty of other people who will commentate. We've discussed about this. But yeah, let's see what happens on the day. And, if I had to bet, would Killian or Zach run at UTMB ever again? I think they will. I think there'll be some meetings of the minds and people will hug and make up. But UTMB and Ironman will carry on doing their thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, let's move on from this topic. I think we have many more other things to discuss, including the first one. I think was interesting to see Ironfar publishing a post about how much does it cost to be a competitive trail runner. What was the takeaway on that article? While I'm going to put it on the screen again.
Well, actually, was the really in-depth article about the costs and really getting into it. Gels, nutrition, flights, training camps, a huge amount. I think the takeaway is it's really hard to make money. I love this one. Yeah. Shoes, apparel, gear, how much it is. One piece of gear, 2 pieces of apparel, 4 pieces of running shoes. That's in essence what should be one of the cheapest sports on the planet.
Yeah.
You just open your door, put on some shoes and run. Look at that, 1,300 in energy gels.
Yeah, just gels. Just assuming gels in that case. Yeah.
3,000. I mean, we can discuss this, but I think what you did, that's what I want to get into.
Yeah.
The GDP relative cost.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us about because
I did then some work to compare it on a very high level, of course, with a runner based in Thailand or Vietnam. So I basically copied the costs of the US athlete from Ironfar. Thank you, Ironfar, for doing that. I really appreciate it. Just to take everyone through it who's not watching it on YouTube, Ironfar broke it down by non-race items. So we have shoes, gears, which is around $1,000 in US, running fuel, in this case only gel, around $1,400, run coaching, around $3,000, quite high number, I was surprised. Gym membership, which Ironfar also assumes you got to get as a runner, $870. And then they also have some membership fees with the community associations in US, around $166. So all in total, the non-race items are $6,500. That doesn't include anything with racing. And then the race items, they broke it down in saying, well, actually, they said the US athlete is competitive if he or she makes it into Western states. That's like the big assumption there. With Western States 100, the most iconic trail race in the US, endurance race in the US. So they say, how much does it cost for someone to get into it? So you have to have a ticket race. So you have to fly there, get the bib, get the car, accommodation. That's $1,500. You have to do a training race of 50K, roughly $250. Do a training camp. I also didn't know that people do a training camp for Western States, around $1,200. And then lastly, of course, the Western States race itself, $2,300. So all in total, just the racing part again is going to be $5,300. Yeah? Combined, this would be like non-race item and race item would be $11,800 just for 1 year of leading up to Western States. This is the breakdown for the US athlete, taking it from Ironfar. A link in the show notes, of course. So I thought, how about a Vietnam athlete? And going back to the non-race items, you have the shoes, the gear, apparel, running fuel, run coaching. I was assuming a 20 to 30% discount for the local people here because of just, I think things are a bit cheaper here. So just assuming some discount there for the nutrition, the shoes. But there's also a wild guess. There's no data backing it up, just to generalize it a bit. So basically the non-race item cost sum up to around $4,000. So it's $2,500 less than in the US. And then I was thinking for a local regional athlete here, the dream, or I guess to be competitive, you got to go to UTMB in France, right? That's the number one thing to do. So there has to be a UTMB registration race, similar to the Western States one, where you have to, finish in a certain time, a certain position. I was assuming the race, for example, in Thailand, so it takes around $800 just to get here from Vietnam with flight, accommodation, again, car. You do a local race, which are usually quite cheap here. You can train anywhere in Vietnam with 50K races, $200. Then the big cost item, of course, is actually going to France, which includes the flight, accommodation, the food. We know that the French Alps are not the cheapest place of all. So around $3,000 just to go to France. And then I'm added also on some insurance and visa, which is for many athletes, by the way, quite difficult to get. It's not cheap to get to Europe for Schengen visa. So just to go to UTMB and including the registration, it's $4,200. Anyway, all of this leads up for the Vietnam athletes to around $8,300 a year. Yeah? So comparing it to US, it's 11,800. Vietnamese is 8,000. So roughly, what is it? $2,500 less. However, I thought, how about doing in GDP per capita adjusted? And we know that US has a high GDP per capita of $70,000, in Vietnam of $3,700. So the final number, I think that's what we're waiting for. The US is $11,800. Vietnam is $155,000. Can you imagine that?
I had to stop. I had to stop what I was doing and read that a few times.
Right. So 13 times more the Vietnam athlete has to pay for 1 year of UTMB racing, so to speak, compared to the US athlete. 13 times more.
I think you may be the only person who's done this actual calculation, partly because that article just came out. But this is so important. Like, I think we almost should go to I Run Far as a follow-up, because even though it is an American article, this is so interesting. Imagine you were told in America, yeah, you want to be a trail runner? The cost per year is $156,000 just to enter the race for some gears.
Yeah. I mean,
no one would do it.
Yeah. I think that's really spots a highlight on what the sport is here in the Southeast Asia, who can really afford it, and how also support is very different. It is a very staggering number.
So let's get into it. So you can't change the cost of UTMB. What we would know is, so for example, gear. I saw Decathlon, which is the big store, has trail running shoes. And in Singapore, they were $29. Now, are they as good as Hoka's? I'm going to say no. I mean, I'm not throwing any shade on Decathlon shoes, but at $29. But then again, who knows? So
I actually heard they're pretty amazing. So just throwing it out there. I've heard, and I'm not paid by them or anything, and I don't know many who are sponsored by them. But I'm saying that the for entry level, the running shoes, they have done at least a very good job in improving the shoes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So a Vietnam athlete could buy cheaper shoes, maybe not buy gels. I noticed you didn't say that they went to they had a gym membership. They don't go to Western states, but still, they need some gear and they have to go to UTMB. I wonder, how do we fix this? Because $156,000 on a GDP adjusted basis is too much.
The biggest item in there is the UTMB trip itself, right? So several thousands of dollars to register with a race in Thailand, and of course to go to France. So assuming they would not necessarily have that ambition and say, we want to stay within the region and maybe go to Hong Kong or Philippines, but then at the same time, they would not be able to compete with the best ones, which we know is in UTMB in France. How to fix it is, I think one approach is to make sure the runners here in the region get better, races get better, and they can compete with each other in a more regional context. That will take time, and or invite more runners or get more runners from the West to come to the East to compete more, right? Because if you flip it on its head, of course, a US or European runner with a higher GDP per capita, and I'm not saying they're rich either. We also know that trail runners have a great lifestyle, and some of them are also not well earning. But I'm sure that if they come to Asia, they would be able to compete more with the people here. So leveling it out a bit.
I mean, look, Zach lives in a van. So not because, he likes that lifestyle, right? Apart from Killian, no one's making millions, or Courtney, they may be making millions. But I think you're right. Like, we need to get athletes from the West to come and see this reality, right? Now, maybe our numbers, if we should always be critical of numbers, maybe, we're assuming a GDP of an average earner in Vietnam. Now, is a trail runner average? I'm going to say that a trail runner probably economically has had better chances. No one's trail running if you're struggling for life and job, right? Trail running is an absolute luxury. So I don't know what you feel about that, but
I would challenge this point a bit, because I do think, I mean, the question is, yeah, a fair question. Who is a trail runner? Like, why are people doing this? And from the top of my head, I would say there are two types in the world, whether it's you call it the weird one. What was it? The Western educated.
what?
There's just some beautiful background animation in my video now. Anyway, who was the weird one again? You defined the weird one.
Western industrialized, educated, rich democracies.
Yeah, those types. So the ones who have nothing else to do in life than to explore themselves, and that can go via running, for example. The other one are I think, coming from the working class, the tough, the rough environment, who also want to just get out and thrive for something. Right? So I think those exist anywhere in the world, whether it's in US or whether it's in Southeast Asia or in Africa or in India. I'm sure this is the same. However, I do think here in this part of the world, there's a stronger percentage of people who, the very good ones, I know at least, come from more deprived backgrounds.
Okay.
I think that the more, apart from Singapore and Hong Kong, I think, looking at us, we of course have benefited from a good life. But in like emerging markets around us, the ones that are very good, I think they come from very humble beginnings and they're not weird.
What we're saying is these athletes, their GDP is fair. It's $156,000. That number is the showstopper number, right? We need to somehow get iRunFar to think about this. And you know what we should do is, I'm not anointing us as the guardians of trail running, but UTMB should have a sponsorship or a package to say, okay.
No, they should have a scholarship. Scholarship.
That's the word. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
We're going to bring one from Vietnam, or two athletes from Vietnam, two from Philippines, two from Africa. But in nations where the reality is it's $156,000 to come to our races, they have enough money to pay for flights, race entry. If they want to make nice in the community now, instead of telling off Zach and Killian why they're naughty, they should say, here's what we're going to do. If I was UTMB, I would replace the 15 with 15 up-and-comers, and UTMB pays for them.
I like that. I mean, you look at elite universities in the West, whether it's in UK or whether it's in US, they always have 20% of the scholarships given out to people in need, whether it's from their own country or from other countries. And I think that's for sure a very good approach to level the playing field a bit, and also allow new talents to come into the market, which usually then actually give more back to the community, essentially, because they're so grateful for what's happening.
So, as you know, in my other life, Marcus, I'm a salesperson, as we have discussed and thought about. I believe the way that you do, nobody can buy something from you if they don't know that it exists. So advertising and sales is the concept that if you want to advertise or sell something, the basic task is just at least let people know that you have something.
Yeah.
Why don't I will do it. I will email UTMB with this idea. Doesn't mean that I can help them or do it. And say, hey guys, I have an idea for you. If they haven't thought about it, we can't criticize them for not doing it.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean they will do it, but...
And my background is fundraising. So how I look at it is that UTMB should go to their sponsors, Hoka, and I think the car brand Dacia, however you pronounce this one, and say, listen, guys, we want you to sponsor the scholarship program, and it benefits you because you are actually getting access to talent as well, and early access. Right? So I'm sure that these larger brands, which I assume are more Western brands, would not mind having a peek into the future of trail running, which I do think is going to be a large part coming from Asia. And the sponsor could do it.
That's a great thing. The sponsors can put up the money. Yes, it is money, but it's a few thousand. Now, I know there's other costs with sponsoring and there's more that goes into it, but it's a great point. Yeah. And imagine Hoka or someone found. I hate the word found. It's quite a colonialist term, but they had found an unknown up and comer, paid a few thousand, and they went top 10 or top one. And let's face it, this year it's never going to be easy to go top 10 in UTMB because the top 15 might not be that.
Yeah.
So, okay, we will take it on ourselves
Perfect.
to email. I think the most likely response is they don't respond, not because they're unkind people, is that they get a lot of emails, but
Well,
you have to.
You
send
never
the email.
know. I mean, a fragile system is usually very responsive. So
Interesting.
So I do think that if you push the right buttons, you might be able to get a response.
That's a great point. And, they did say in their email, we want to listen, we want to understand, we want to think about this.
If
So let's give them
anything,
something to think about.
there is Killian and Zach who put out an email. They have published their email, so you can also write them, and I'm sure they have direct access to UTMB.
They do. I will email Zach and Killian as well.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We will report
Yes.
what we're doing, and let's see, because this number, this 156,000 number, it's not going to change. We can't change the GDP of Vietnam.
No.
But we can change the relative cost by providing scholarships and other ways for athletes to grow in this sport.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think perfect. Ned, we're onto something here.
Let's do it.
Wonderful. Let's move on from that part to a film review. And you have pointed out this film to me a few days ago. I'm very grateful for that. I watched it. I had goosebumps most of the time. It was not another Christmas movie. It was, of course, a trail documentary. Ned, what is it?
Breaking Point, a Dead Cow Gully documentary. The best running documentaries, I feel, are documentaries. Now, Marcus, you're clearly a runner. I'm a runner. The best ultra-run documentaries are documentaries that non-runners can watch. So the most famous documentary is the Barkley Marathon, the race that eats its young. It went on Netflix. It got millions of views. It was the one that introduced to the Barkley. And I showed it to my family, and I sent it to other people who were non-runners. And they're like, that's amazing. Running films that are so running-centric, they're harder to watch. Of course, this is about backyard. This is about the world record has now been broken. It was a backyard race in Australia, which really followed 5 or 6 main characters on the way through. And there's no plot twist here. Everyone knows they broke the world record at 102 loops. But it was the initial part of the film focusing on a young man who was 16 with his dad doing 20-something loops, and the dad being proud of the son while the dad pressed on. It was a lady from New Zealand who's had a bit of a tumultuous life and was running. But the creme de la creme was Harvey Lewis, Sam Harvey, and Phil Gore, some of the greats, going at it. And while I always respect Harvey Lewis and Phil Gore, Sam Harvey. I mean, if you want to know if you put out all your effort in a race, what Sam Harvey? This dude, if you want to know if you've given your all, this dude gave his all, didn't he, Marcus?
I feel like he basically lived and died and was reborn at the same time in one race. It's like a massive Buddhist story of just being reborn. Fascinating. I mean, the film focused quite a bit on him, so I really appreciate the insights there. I have a few things I picked up from that film.
Go for it.
And I want to use it a bit to ask you some questions, because there's a lot about also backyard strategy and some other just general points. First one, there was a lady who did the tip to toe run in Australia, which I believe 150 marathons every day. And she, I would argue, has been very trained for a long distance. But she struggled with backyard. She only did 100K, I believe. So even you have done 150 marathons, backyard is a very different animal. Why do you think that is?
You can't have a bad yard. So if you're listening, a yard is the word we use to describe the 1 hour time to do the 6.7K. So it's called a yard. The difference is when you're running a marathon every day, if you want to stop for 20 minutes to have a cup of tea or to fix something, you can. In backyards, you cannot. You cannot have it's a very different format. You know, if you're doing an ultra and it's 100K and you stop at a checkpoint and you really need some soup and you need to tape your blister and you just have some stuff to do, you can do that. Backyard, if you finished in 51 minutes, you have 9 minutes. That's it. And that's what messes with people's head. And I think that's what she couldn't handle. The reality that backyard is an exercise in time management. It's an exercise in understanding. You have 9 minutes. So I have done 4 backyards, but I've done about 60 or 70 yards in training. So I calculated I've done about 120 yards in my life. So that's 120 times I've practiced that 9 or 10 minutes in between getting ready, standing up, what to do, sit back down. It sounds silly, but it's hard. So that's what she didn't understand about the race.
Fair enough. And then the other part was I saw that, I think it was Phil Gore, the winner eventually. He had someone with him who hypnotized him.
Wild.
And so it seemed to me, if I got it right, that in those, 7, 10, 8 minutes of between the yards, he had some help, or outside help, I don't know, to make him asleep. And what I was like, wow, this is the first time I see this. So I really was really curious about that. Like how, like why, and then what do you think it does?
We all know that ultra running is a mental game. So, it's going to surprise nobody to hear that, run with your body, but you really run with your mind. Again, in backyard, it's not a speed thing. It's about to keep going. I hadn't seen that before either, but it's well known. So when Harvey Lewis did the 107 yards at backyard in October, he said he didn't sleep for the first 3.5 days.
Right.
He couldn't get to sleep.
Yeah.
His brain wouldn't calm.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't sleep for 3.5 days, that's going to mess you up, right? That's going to, quite often when people are getting into the 100 yards, they go off course. So it's been at backyard in the World Championships, one guy called John Knoll finished on 99 loops. Of course he wanted 100. Why did he not get? He just went off path in the forest. His brain was so scrambled, he started walking the wrong way. And when they found him, he was headed the wrong way. And he just couldn't figure out what was going on. And he just didn't make it back. So I think but you don't fall asleep immediately. So when you come back, it's very hard to calm your brain because you're thinking, oh, next loop, I'm tired, I've got to eat. So that was the ability, even 5 minutes sleep. And Courtney talks about this. When Courtney's doing FKTs, she says 2-3 minutes sleep will reset your brain for a few hours. So the hypnotism, I think, was the ability to get all of his thoughts out. It was great, that little bit, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
Phil was sitting there and the guy was talking at him.
It got me thinking, as usual, I'm a very curious person. So as we are now humans are doing these extraordinary feats of long distance, will we see an increase of new techniques adopted from other mental performance coaches that will be used more and more in running now? Because as we are going to 100 yards, 500 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, I think we will see extraordinary things soon, even more. What else can we expect to see that has been practiced in other parts of humankind to really make sure that our mental game is up to speed and we are able to do even more?
Have you heard of the guy Sri Chinmoy?
I have not.
So Sri Chinmoy was an Indian guru who believed running was the path to self-transcendence. He has a race in New York, which I'm smiling, so you're going to know it's going to be a pointless looped race. It is a 3,100-mile race around a 0.6-mile block around in somewhere in the upstate New York. You have to run 60 miles a day, every day, around this same block in a normal neighborhood for 60 days to become self-transcendence, to remove your thoughts from your brain. So 5,000 kilometers around the same 0.6 of a mile loop in a busy street endlessly. I think, to answer your question, yes, there's going to be ways to reimagine the brain. Now, whether that's through... Okay, so the answer is yes. Here's a question. I didn't think I'd be asking this question first thing on a Wednesday morning. Psychedelics not that I take them and not that they're legal in the country that I live in, but would change your mind to think that you can keep doing things. I wonder whether they should be banned in ultra, because changing the state of your mind to carry on is important. So you talked about what techniques could we use. I
All
wonder where
right,
it could
let
go.
me dig into this a bit more because I have a personal experience here, not on the psychedelic front with trail running, but on the front of meditation. So I guess we're taking a bit of a detour now. In 2018, I decided to do a so-called 10-day Vipassana course. 10-day Vipassana, it's also called silent retreat. You spend pretty much all the time by yourself, 10 and a half hours a day, meditation, following a certain type of technique. Long story short, those 10 days were really important in my life and changed some inner flow inside me. This is for another podcast, I'm sure. But why is it relevant for trail running? I saw a very different approach to my thinking, which also impacted trail running. I was able to look at 100K very differently than before. And I'm quite a rushed and impatient person, which doesn't necessarily serve you well in long distance running because you just start too fast, you do wrong nutrition. But having gone through a 10-day silent retreat resets many things. And one of the impacts is to say, 100K is 100K. It's just what it is. Let's get on with this. And from that point onward, I really looked at longer races. I really went into long distance training. It helped me so much about that. I also have tried psychedelics in a guided context, so not in a party context. Very important to point it out. I'm not entirely sure the impact there on trail running, to be honest with you, but I do think that meditation and having a calm mind really helped me.
How hard was that 10 days?
If I, on a scale for 1 to 10, probably the first 5 days were like a 9.5, and then it was 3 at the end of the last few days. Yeah.
Wow.
It is a bit like trail running, to be honest with you, where, the first 90K are painful as F, and then the last 10K are just pure bliss. So I think it's very similar. You need to cross that chasm and then get on with it. Yeah.
And the mental capacity, in essence, it is hard to sit for 10 days because you get muscle soreness, but you were using your mind.
Yeah. It's all about
the same
mind.
way that you did ultra.
It's mind over body. That's one of the key phrases. And so, back to the kind of the film and what we were talking about earlier. I'm just very curious if we're seeing more of a merger of those different expertise.
Yes.
And I have not considered hypnosis really in my life, but having seen it, I'm like, maybe I can adopt something like this to for certain things in my working life balance and so on.
So if you're following the front of UTMB, is Zach or Killian or Tom Evans going to stop for a quick hypnosis session at an aid station? Absolutely not, right? Because that is, we have now moved into the world where 100K is a speed effort, right? But where these longer, these 200-mile races, do I think in 200-mile, in FKTs, in backyards, in this long stuff, keeping your mind on track, whether that's hypnosis or something else, will that be a growing trend? Absolutely.
Yeah. And then playing it even further, how will that knowledge benefit the broader human society? So I'm wondering if there's going to be more research now done in trail runners, like they maybe scan the brains, they maybe understand the physiology and mental capacity more, where, they're going to do more clinical trials, say, hey, you're doing 101 yards, that's impressive. Can we scan your brain? What can we learn from you in order to help other humans with mental peace? Because I think we are in a bit of a mental health crisis in the world, and we need more understanding of how do we become more peaceful. And trail runners, endurance athletes have to be peaceful, otherwise you couldn't do these things.
Now, we don't have time on today's show, but as a topic for another show, that thought, we don't know the answer to this question because trail running is in its first real generation of mass adoption. Will trail runners live longer? We don't know. I keep getting told, so I love my dad with all my heart, but whenever I do 100K, so I'm doing my 100K this Friday, he's like, oh, no, it's not good for you. But is it not good? My dad's a scientist and he's a very bright man. Is running 100K good for the longevity of your life? It's good for my soul. We love it. I'll keep doing it. But we won't know for 100 years. Will trail runners all live till we're over 100, right? We're all going to live forever because we found some peace in our minds and the peace in our bodies, physically and mentally. Or will we all die at 70 of an enlarged heart and keel over? I don't know the answer to that, but it is a deep topic about the capability of running long way to change your mental state.
Last point from the film, which I also enjoyed, was, I think it was Sam, who clearly stated his goal of breaking the world record. And it was such a chilling moment for me that he articulated so well his goal initially. And I would even say visualized it, which brings me to the point of visualization. Something you and I have talked about. You actually taught me this a few years ago. And I wanted to pick your brain about this. Like, how important is visualization to you and how does it help you?
It is, and I think the moment in the film when Sam said, and I assume that's his parents who were with him, giving him a hug there, he's like, I'll take him to the win. He knew Phil was going to win. And those last 5 loops, he must have visualized very hard, taking Phil to the win. He wasn't doing it for him. He was doing it for another guy. A guy, I'm going to assume he's not his best mate, but he became best mates after that. Whenever I run visualization, I find for me, I adore running and I am in the moment, but I think I visualize. So if it's racing, so this is going to sound really stupid to people might, if I raced Usain Bolt, I visualize I would win. Obviously I won't. Like it's not, and I'm not delusional totally, but part of the joy to me of doing hard things is visualizing amazing outcomes and trying to get there. So for me personally, that visualization is super important. Now, everyone's unique. Everyone does it in different ways. But, I come from Britain. And in Britain, people are always told, oh, I can't do that. No. Oh, no, not me. This is very humble. No, I can't do it. Oh, I didn't know, And I'm not saying walk around beating your chest and be like, oh, I'm a hero. For me, if you're doing a long race, don't, and I've ranted about this before, don't say, oh, why me and I can't do this. Believe you can do it. If you don't, it's okay. But visualize strongly.
When do you do it?
Most of the way, which is crazy. You mean in race or just when I'm going for a long run?
In general, like do you do it a night before, a minute before? When do you start the process of visualization?
I do it a lot when I'm running. When I visualize about running, I do it a lot. If it's a race, I do it on runs before the race. So when I'm training, so when I did Ironman, I would always be thinking, right, I'm in Kona now, I'm on Alihi Drive, or I'm swimming. So most of my visualization was within training, because when I'm doing other things in life, I try to be present in those moments in life. I'm not very good at it always. If I'm watching Netflix, I try to watch Netflix. If I'm, having dinner with my wife, I try to have dinner with my wife. But when I'm out training, I'll listen to podcasts, but I also think, particularly if I'm training for a race, like I'm doing my 100K this Friday. I know I said I'd do it last Friday, but I'm doing this Friday. And I did a 40K run this weekend. And I was thinking quite a lot about that. Okay. And what I was thinking about, I was visualizing not stopping. I mean, whenever I take a drink, it takes me 5 minutes to go into 7-Eleven. I was visualizing taking 3 minutes. Because if I can save 2 minutes at every 7-Eleven stop, and there's 5 of them, there's 10 minutes. So I visualize while I train.
Right. Okay, interesting.
But I'm going to say this. I've got to get Sam Harvey on the show. Now, one thing I will tell you, we do not swear so far on this show. Doesn't mean I love swearing, but it just maybe changes the Apple thing. If we get Sam Harvey on, he's dropping some F-bombs. I've heard him interviewed. That dude sounds like a character.
He is. He does. No, I think that was, besides, of course, a great documentary, was a lot of little snippets here and there I picked up to really learn also from those guys. I mean, of course, beautiful nature shots, beautiful Australian nature shots, and some very good personal stories, but also it's good to learn. So we're trying to review a documentary now and then. So if any one of you listeners have any documentary you want to point out, please share them with us. We will make sure to spread them with the world, as this is a growing industry. I already have a few others for next week's to discuss with you.
Good. I tell you what, we'll do this. We'll do this, Marcus. I'll choose a documentary one week. You choose it the next week. So next week it's on you.
Wonderful. Then we're coming already to our race recap corner, where we have a few races to discuss. But first and foremost, I thought let's kind of look into the race calendar, which you shared with us, which is on ultrarunning.com. And I looked into the past few races and the next few races on this calendar, which covers arguably most of the American races. And I was really astonished, or to be honest with you, by the amount of small races. So looking at the result list from the last 2 weeks, most of the races had 17 participants, 15, 20, 30, 50. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a amazing community in the US where these races are covered online and only have that many participants. Where I think in this part of the world where we are, a trail race usually has at least 1,000, 5,000 participants now. Otherwise, it doesn't make commercially sense. So also there for me was a bit of a difference in races there, how participant numbers are changing. Secondly, before we go to any particular race, I did a bit more work, again, to compare the cost of race entrance fees across US, Europe, and Asia. And you can, again, if you're watching online, you can see here my screen where I'm sharing I picked, I guess, most iconic, most known races in each of these regions, US, Europe, Asia. The prices are USD and Euro, USD. I didn't do the conversion, but you get the point. For me, interesting that in US, actually, Western States, Hard Rock, and Leadville, each 100-mile race, assuming early bird entry, was almost all the same price. So it seems like that the industry has grown quite a bit already in US, and the pricing has leveled itself out and become quite similar across all these three major races. Badwater is a bit of a strange one with a lot of money involved because I think it's a very extreme race. So it's a bit of an outlier there. But in general, it seems like that the top races have all the same price. Do you think that's a fair observation for the US?
100%. And it's amazing how close that is at the $450-ish dollar mark. It's surprising. Maybe I wonder if they call each other and say, what should we set the price at? But it's, that to me, 400, again, unless you're from a low GDP country, it's not cheap, but it doesn't seem absolutely outrageous.
It's quite socialist in that sense. which tells you maybe about the community in US as well. Like, let's be fair to each other. Let's do the same pricing. It's probably not as cutthroat as in other parts of the world. Where I'm moving to Europe, I saw a bit of a different trend there. Again, Europe is a bit of a more clustered countries, so it's not as easy to pick the top races. So I took UTMB 100 miles, Tour de France 330, Transgran Canaria, Madeira, Spartathlon, and the range is actually quite high, I would say. So it's Madeira and Transcanaria, 150 euros, which I assume also they're on an island, so people have to fly there. Tour de Géant, the number I could find was around 800 something euros. UTMB is 430 euros, Spartathlon 950 euro. So the races are a bit different in its nature, but also the pricing is quite different there too.
So, and look, Tour de Géant is obviously much longer.
Yeah.
So you're paying to be out there longer. Yeah. Maybe at another point we should look at cost per K. Not that anyone really cares, but if we're digging into it.
I was hoping you don't say that because I thought about it. And I just I was last night. I'm not going to do this right now. Yeah. But you are picking it up correctly. I do think I will continue this and do it per K or per mile and see how the costs are changing. Moving to Asia, also, I think there is quite a wide range between Hong Kong 100, UTMB in Thailand, Vietnam Mountain Marathon, Rinjani, Mount Fuji in Japan, and then MMTF, another Malaysian race. It varies quite a bit, right? So Mount Fuji is $678, where Vietnam Mountain Marathon is $189. So it's $500 difference. And so it seems like that in Asia, the race entry varies much, much more.
But I would say UTMF is more iconic, right? It's been around longer. It's a bigger race. It is UTMB-ish. It's Mount Fuji. Japan's not as expensive anymore because just economically it has changed. But it's a good point. You can race better in Asia. But then in the same way that we said it's expensive for Vietnam athletes, if somebody from America wanted to race Vietnam Mountain Marathon, the entry fee is nothing but the flight's $1,000, right? So relatively makes sense.
Anyway, we love data here, so we are digging into this, and I do like to do some research as well. Is there any race you want to highlight from last
Not
weekend?
not really. The only thing is when I would look through the race calendar, I was looking and I brought up that calendar I sent you. I was scrolling through races this upcoming weekend, February the 3rd, and I just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I was like, what? Just to say, you have the amount of races you can race anywhere in the world is endless. Great to see, exciting to see. You know, you will never run. look at this. If you're not on YouTube, Marcus is scrolling through page after page after page.
Black Toe Run. That sounds fun. Elephant
The
Mountain
Black Toe.
Run. Yeah. It is.
These
I mean,
are all
they're all only American races, I believe. Yeah, they're only in America. So this doesn't cover
but
anything else.
that but I think we can summarize it by saying there's a lot of races. You're never short of race choice.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, I think in this part of the world there was the Oman Desert Marathon, which looked quite fun. I looked into this a bit. Then we had something happening in Cambodia, the Angkor Wat Trail Marathon. I had some friends racing there, but this is just a. I also there was a race in, of course, in the Philippines. I saw a lot of things going on. It's
Good to see.
Doesn't stop. Good. I think quickly on your 100K. What's your plan for Friday now?
So it is confirmed and set and done. I missed it last Friday because I had a work call in the evening, so I moved it. But it was all set. I am leaving at 5:30 p.m. on Friday. I have 14 hours to arrive by 7:30 a.m. at the East Coast Park. I'm doing one big loop in Singapore, starting and finishing at East Coast Park Run for 7:30 a.m. I hope to finish exactly at 7 a.m. to give me half an hour. I have asked lots of people, if you listen to this podcast, guess my time. Whoever's the closest wins Lecker bars, the number of minutes it takes. So if you guess 29 minutes and I run 29 minutes, you get 29 Lecker bars. The deciding point is, can I break 30 or not? That seems to be the bone of contention. I believe I can. Some dear friends believe I can't. Some dear friends believe I can. I will put it all down and we will see.
I will see you on Friday in Singapore and on Saturday.
I look forward to it.
Yes, I can't wait to see you. I'm excited.
You can pace me to a fast time.
Yes, let's talk about that on Saturday.
Let's do it.
Let's see. Wonderful. Now we come to the last part, which I'm always looking forward to. It is Ned's weekly drop. Take it away, Ned.
Inspired by a 6-hour run in the pouring, tropical, lovely rain. The rain. Really? It's wet? Wait, what? Let's stay in bed. That's way more fun, right? Can you imagine? 5 a.m., alarm, let's go. Ha, no way. It's raining hard. No one else is out. F that. Turnover. Warm, easy, snuggling. Yay. Let's do that every day. You will be pleased with that. That's what almost everyone does. So you are normal. But maybe. Turn off the alarm quickly. Don't wake your partner. Tiptoe downstairs. Raining harder. Gear on. Coffee. Scroll phone. Vaseline up for the long effort. Headphones in. Shoes on. Watch clicked. Door open. LFG. Dark. Shivery. So beautiful. No one there. They are normal. They are in bed. But you know, YOLO, right? Start to get into your groove. A couple of miles in, the eyes. You see an animal in the bush. It's like, really? A dumbass human? In the dark rain? Don't see many of those. It nods in respect. You nod back. We're all the same. They run off, you run on. An hour goes by. You have seen just one other person. They nod like the animal. Who cares about all the shit in life? We're out here in the rain, doing what we do best. Running, like a wild human. You smash a big puddle. It splashes back. Huge smile. Kid-like. That's right. This is it. You speed up. Tunes thumping. You are flying. Huge smile. The trail dips down. Arms out. You slip. Fall. Or not. Who cares? Soaking. Muddy. Free. Exhilarated. And it was all there. For you. Because you got out of bed in the rain. That's what life tastes like. Or was it just a dream? Stretch. Wake up. It was sunny. You just dreamt it. Get out there. Ned.
Thank you, Ned. I hear feedback from the community that people really enjoy those drops. So the drops of inspiration and wisdom coming right away from you.
Thank you. They come, I run, I think, I write them down, I send them to you. That is that.
Again, we also always welcome anyone else to drop their wisdom. We are ramping up the show as we speak. We are excited about more episodes to come. We will open up to guests at some point when we feel the flow is right, and we are evolving this podcast adventure like any other trail run. Thank you so much.
We are on number K3, and I'm not going to say this is a 100K race. This is a backyard. We're never stopping, Marcus. We're in this. This is it.
Yes, we're both doing it together. I'm your assist, you're my assist. Who knows?
Can't drop out, man. You can't drop out if you're an assist. You can't drop out. It's not allowed, right? This is it. We're doing this. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we will see you next week.
Please subscribe to our newsletter. It's on the website, onemorek.com. We are on Twitter, onemorek, on Instagram, onemorek. We are on all available platforms. And if you like us, subscribe also to us on YouTube if you want to see our faces a bit more. Thank you, everyone. Have a good week and weekend ahead. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye.